He reminds Shirone that his father is currently supporting their family, but soon, it will be Shirone's turn to take responsibility and even get married. Shirone, taken aback, struggles to respond, realizing that he has never deeply considered this. Unlike his friends, who are already helping with their family's businesses, his father is still struggling alone, and when will he be able to help? Sensing the sudden shift in mood, Altor tries to lighten the atmosphere and challenges Shirone to an arm wrestling match, reminding him of how strong he was before. The others cheer in excitement. Our dude recalls how they used to play this game as children, and back then, he often won. However, to maintain Altor's reputation, he decides to lose on purpose. They agree to a bet and the loser will pay for the meal. As soon as the match begins, Altor's overwhelming strength shocks everyone. Shirone collapses to the ground trembling in disbelief. Rumina immediately scolds Altor for using too much force. Altor, equally surprised, insists that he didn't expect Shirone to be this weak. Feeling guilty, he offers to pay for the meal, but Shirone quickly stands up laughing and insists that since he lost, he will pay. However, as Shirone reaches for his money, his bag falls to the ground, revealing 5 gold coins. His friends, stunned, exclaim in surprise. Rumina points out that 5 gold coins are equivalent to a month's worth of business earnings. Shirone, panicking inside, wonders what to do. Altor's face turns red. Shirone breaks into a nervous sweat, realizing that he is in trouble. Rumina questions our guy about the source of the money, to which he hesitantly responds that he is sponsored. This revelation surprises everyone, leading them to assume he will never have to worry about finances again. However, he quickly corrects them, making it clear that the situation isn't as simple as they think. Despite this, he realizes that things might take an unfavorable turn. Standing behind him, Altor grows irritated and loudly expresses his frustration, wondering why such a fuss is being made over a few gold coins. His outburst prompts immediate apologies from the others. A sudden recollection of the past unsettles the boys, filling them with unease. Rumina too remembers that Altor tends to become unusually sensitive whenever Shirone is present. Altor clears his throat awkwardly, attempting to brush it off. Just then, Martin claps his hands, steering the conversation in a new direction. He mentions a rumor about a predatory animal sighted in the mountains. Brad confirms the claim, adding that wild animals have been disappearing lately. With a sigh, Rumina sarcastically commends Martin for his supposed heroic instincts. Brad elaborates, explaining that his father described the creature as resembling a bear. Shirone, recalling a similar account, nods and remarks that his father mentioned it as well. He wonders why an animal that typically inhabits the north has wandered so close to the village. Rumina speculates that it could be the breeding season or something similar and reassures the group that as long as they avoid venturing too deep into the forest, there should be no danger. At that moment, Altor unexpectedly suggests hunting the beast. His proposal startles the group, prompting them to question whether he is serious. With confidence, Altor asserts that they will be aiding the villagers, and reminds everyone of his own skills. If it is merely a bear, he reasons, there should be no need to involve the adults. One of the boys chuckles, pointing out that Altor once hunted a red bear, so this task should be effortless for him. Shirone is taken aback by this revelation. Without hesitation, Altor declares that they will set out the following morning and turns to Shirone, asking if he will join. Seeing Rumina's enthusiasm, Shirone smiles and agrees to help if he can. The group finalizes their plan, deciding to gather in front of Rumina's house at dawn. They raise their glasses in a celebratory toast to the upcoming hunt. Filled with anticipation, as the sun rises, Rumina approaches Shirone, inquiring if he has rested well and urging him to prepare. After changing into his hunting attire, he confirms that he is ready, and the two step outside. Rumina waves cheerfully to the others, assuring them that all is well. Altor, grinning, jokingly warns Shirone not to lag behind, or they might leave him behind. Shirone chuckles, assuring him there is no need for concern. Upon entering the forest, the group efficiently divides tasks. 2 members set up net traps on the ground while another secures a rope to a tree. Below, someone makes the final adjustments. Observing their swift coordination, our guy is impressed and praises their efficiency. One of the teammates smirks, remarking that setting up the traps is the easy part, and what truly matters is Altor's role in the hunt. Carefully studying the beast's tracks, Altor determines that it is close by. He instructs everyone to remain vigilant and retreat immediately if they spot the creature. Watching from a distance, Shirone is struck by Altor's expertise, and even Rumina appears satisfied with their progress. A sudden thought crosses our guy's mind. If he utilizes his spiritual zone, he might be able to locate the creature more quickly. Closing his eyes, he concentrates deeply. However, what he perceives leaves him stunned, and a vivid image of an animal carcass flashes before him. Alarmed, Shirone's eyes snap open and an unsettling sensation washes over him. Something feels terribly wrong. As he turns to process the vision, a firm hand suddenly grasps his shoulder. It is Altor, his expression filled with irritation. He demands to know why Shirone disappeared without a word. However, before he can continue reprimanding him, an eerie sound reverberates through the forest. Both Altor and Shirone instinctively look up, their eyes widening at the sight before them. Scattered across the ground lay the remains of countless wild animals. Rumina gasps in horror, and panic quickly spreads through the group. Altor, momentarily paralyzed by the gruesome scene, struggles to process it. Shirone immediately urges everyone to retreat, warning them that no ordinary bear could be responsible for such carnage. Still shaken, Altor demands an explanation. Shirone insists that the adults must be notified at once. The mountain should be sealed off, and if necessary, reinforcements from the city should be requested. Altor, however, grips Shirone's shoulder, urging him to wait. He questions the need for soldiers when they have yet to confirm what they are dealing with, arguing that they are capable of handling the situation themselves. Shirone counters, reminding him that he had initially claimed it was just a bear. But the reality before them is far more alarming. Frustration flares in Altor's eyes as he demands to know what Shirone truly understands. The sudden shift in tone catches everyone off guard. Altor, his voice rising, accuses Shirone of never acknowledging him as a leader and treating him as if he were incompetent. Shirone, momentarily stunned by the accusation, is about to respond when a noise from behind interrupts them. Every head turns toward the sound. One of the boys raises his bow, his voice faltering as he asks what kind of creature they are facing. Before them stands a monstrous beast who's an unnatural fusion of a bear and a wolf. A wave of dread washes over Shirone as he realizes that this is no ordinary animal, but a true monster. It is unlike anything they have encountered before. He has read about such creatures in books, but seeing one in person sends chills down his spine. The group instinctively steps backward, their bodies rigid with fear. After a brief moment of hesitation, Altor raises his bow and releases an arrow. To their horror, the beast effortlessly evades the attack. A collective gasp escapes the group as Shirone mutters in disbelief that the creature had dodged with precision. With a sinking feeling, our guy recognizes what they are dealing with. This is no mere beast but a wolf who's an intelligent monster. His studies have taught him that such creatures possess both strength and speed beyond normal animals. Some even rival human intelligence. Though their origins remain a mystery, scholars speculate that their unique evolution stems from the harsh conditions of their environment. As the arrow narrowly misses, the group watches in shock as the beast tears through a tree and charges forward with terrifying speed. Altor, momentarily frozen, quickly regains his composure and shouts for everyone to run. Panic spreads as they scramble to escape, uncertain of which direction to take. One of them suggests fleeing downhill, but Altor immediately dismisses the idea, insisting they head toward the mountain's peak instead. At that crucial moment, Shirone grips his bow and turns to face the wolf. Altor, eyes wide with alarm, yells at him, questioning whether he intends to act as bait. Without hesitation, Shirone draws his bowstring and releases an arrow straight at the monster's head. However, the creature remains unfazed, retaliating instantly by crushing Shirone's bow with a single powerful strike. Just in time, Shirone teleports away, narrowly avoiding the devastating blow. The wolf lets out a deep menacing growl. Breathing heavily, Shirone quickly assesses the creature's incredible speed and impenetrable hide. Realizing that the only way to ensure everyone's safety is to divert the monster's attention, he makes a split-second decision. As the beast lunges forward at breakneck speed, Shirone continuously teleports, leading it away from his companions. However, just as he begins to believe he has drawn it far enough, the wolf suddenly halts and shifts direction. A wave of dread washes over him that something isn't right. The monster has found a new target. Meanwhile, Altor orders the group to discard anything heavy and keep moving. But just as they press on, he abruptly stops in his tracks. Turning back, he tells them to continue without him. Rumina, her voice trembling with panic, calls out to him, demanding to know what he is doing. Tears welling in his eyes, Altor confesses that he cannot bring himself to abandon Shirone. Rumina, equally distraught, turns back and calls his name once more. At that very moment, the wolf closes in on Altor. In that fleeting second, he wonders if Shirone has already fallen. A crushing sense of guilt grips him, that if he had only listened when Shirone suggested fleeing downhill, and if things have turned out differently. But before despair can fully take hold, a brilliant golden light suddenly flares between him and the monstrous beast. For a brief moment, Rumina watches in stunned silence, believing the creature has been slain. The others, equally astonished, exchange bewildered glances, questioning whether they have just witnessed magic. However, their relief is short-lived. From a distance, Shirone's voice pierces the tense air as he shouts for everyone to run. The monster has taken a hit, but it is far from defeated. Desperation creeps into Rumina's expression that how could it have survived? If it was that dazzling light, nothing more than an illusion. Before anyone can react, the wolf launches another attack, this time aiming for the people positioned above. Altor stands frozen in sheer terror, unable to will his body into motion. Rumina, gripped by fear, tries to escape, but the beast's massive claws slash toward her. As she stumbles, falling to the ground, a crushing sense of helplessness takes hold. Just as all hope seems lost, Shirone rushes in, intercepting the attack and seizing the monster. Altor's voice rings out, crying Shirone's name as the wolf retaliates with another strike. This time its razor-sharp claws stretch toward Shirone, but in the blink of an eye, he vanishes. A split second later, the monster too is consumed by the same mysterious energy and disappears alongside him. Rumina, still sprawled on the ground, screams in horror. Shirone reappears, having teleported both himself and the beast to an entirely different location. His mind races, searching for his next course of action. His original plan was to let go of the creature as soon as he severed its connection to Rumina's essence, but doing so now would leave him exposed to attack. At the same time, keeping it close any longer is equally dangerous. He quickly scans his surroundings. Both he and the monster are now outside the clear light's reach. The question remains how he can defeat it. A thought flashes through his mind. He recalls old stories about silver coins and fragments of knowledge buried in his memory. Something capable of manipulating gravity or disrupting symmetry might hold the key. Within his spiritual realm, he extends his hand toward a reflective mirror, channeling his aura into it. A luminous beam of energy bursts forth. In that instant, realization dawns upon him that mathematics holds the answer. As the transparent barrier shatters around him, Shirone grasps a fundamental truth. Mass is an intrinsic property of matter, one that remains unchanged regardless of location or state. It determines inertia and the total energy of an object at rest, what physicists call rest energy. Shirone contemplates the nature of existence, questioning why the world exists and what it truly means to exist. His mind wanders to the concept of mass. Why does matter possess it, and what governs its presence? Within his dream, he envisions space, a realm of symmetry breaking apart. A thought emerges. If the universe existed before anything came into being, then survival for species must depend on disrupting its symmetry. He begins to understand that mass plays a crucial role in this process, and that he might have the ability to grant photons mass. In reality, a deafening explosion shatters the silence, scattering debris in every direction. Shirone swiftly teleports downward, landing just beyond the impact. His breath catches as he peers through the thick smoke. Lying motionless before him is the wolf's lifeless body. As he gazes at it, a realization strikes, and Armin's words echo in his mind. Symmetry can be broken through a form of spatial knowledge, an elusive force known as unnamed knowledge. There exists a mechanism that endows matter with mass, and if manipulated correctly, even light could gain substance. A triumphant smile spreads across Shirone's face as newfound clarity washes over him. However, his thoughts soon shift as he studies the fallen creature, pondering why such a formidable beast would inhabit these mountains. Just then, an eerie sound disrupts his contemplation. His body tenses as he whirls around, suddenly grasping something he had overlooked. These monsters do not roam alone. Lifting his gaze, he sees what lies ahead. He is no longer facing a single wolf. On the opposite side, Altor and the others stand frozen in fear. Before them looms a vast pack of wolves, their piercing eyes fixated on the humans like predators eyeing helpless prey. Terror spreads through the group. Some begin to weep, overwhelmed by the imminent danger. Determined, Altor takes charge, declaring that he will draw the creatures away while the others descend the cliff. His words are met with immediate protest. A companion, horrified, calls him reckless, asking if he has lost his mind. But Altor remains resolute. He insists that this is their only chance at survival. With tears brimming in his eyes, he urges them to live, ensuring that his and Shirone's sacrifices will not be in vain. Just then, a brilliant light pierces through the sky. A luminous figure descends and Shirone, having teleported at just the right moment, lands dramatically, his presence exuding power. The group rushes toward him, voices overlapping as they cry out in relief. Some had feared he was dead, and sobs of joy fill the air. Shirone simply smiles and offers a quiet apology. Altor, standing nearby, calls out, but Shirone speaks first, apologizing for causing him worry. Without hesitation, he tells Altor to leave the wolves to him. Alarmed, Altor moves to intervene, but Shirone reassures him, stating that this does not violate the school's rules. A deafening roar erupts as the wolves, driven by fury, charge at Shirone with incredible speed. He remains unmoving, his hand glowing as photons gather at his fingertips. Rumina and the others watch in stunned silence. The light is unlike anything they had seen before. Its nature has changed. A distinct glow forms on Shirone's forehead as he recognizes what has happened. He has successfully infused mass into the photons. With a single motion, he unleashes an immense force, a radiant energy slicing through the oncoming monsters. Altor and the others gasp in shock at the sight. As Shirone watches the aftermath, understanding dawns upon him. This is his magic, something he had always been capable of but had never realized. The remaining wolves, now consumed by rage, launch another assault. This time Shirone takes the offensive, teleporting forward to meet them head-on. A massive photon blast engulfs the battlefield, wiping out many of them in an instant. Altor, Ramina, and the others remain speechless, struggling to comprehend what they have just witnessed. Altor murmurs in disbelief that Shirone is a true magician. However, Shirone is all too aware of the cost. This form of magic demands an immense toll on his mental strength. Suddenly a presence looms behind him. A wolf stands, poised to strike. Shirone reacts instantly, turning to launch another attack. Yet as the dust settles, the monster opens its eyes and it is still alive. Shock flashes across Shirone's face. His magic, once unstoppable, has weakened. Sensing an opportunity, the wolf lets out a piercing howl. Within moments, the pack surges forward in unison. Cries of warning erupt from Altor and the others, urging Shirone to flee. But he stands firm. There is no turning back. His mind races that there is only one path forward. The question remains if he can succeed. He questions whether he can maintain his balance as the powerful currents surge around him. The monsters, swift as lightning, close the distance in an instant. Urgent cries from his companions reach his ears, urging him to flee. At that moment, his eyes snap open, glowing with an intense blue light. Within the spiritual realm, the cracks widen further, and a dark vortex, resembling a black hole, begins to form, pulling everything into its depths. His consciousness shifts, returning him to the state he once reached when performing before the entire school. His arm gradually fades, yet he still struggles to lift it. In the real world, an immense torrent of magical energy erupts from him, crashing into the advancing creatures. The sheer force of the attack hurls several wolves backward. Its power is so overwhelming that neither Rumina nor Martin can remain steady on their feet. Altor, staring ahead, struggles to believe what he is witnessing. Even as it unfolds before his eyes, it feels unreal. Before them, an enormous surge of energy radiates from him. Yet, the relentless creatures refuse to falter. Some managing to push forward, despite the devastation. A sudden realization dawns upon him that his energy is depleting rapidly. If this continues, his spirit domain will dissipate like mist in the wind. A memory surfaces, reminding him of a similar moment in the past. Understanding what must be done, he recognizes that there is only one option left, which is to unleash every ounce of energy he possesses. Resolving to act, he follows his instincts. The previous outpouring of magic had been powerful, yet this time, he amplifies it to an unimaginable degree. The resulting energy surges outward, its brilliance eclipsing everything in sight. The ground trembles, and the very air seems to rupture. Rocks explode into dust, and the wolves, frozen in terror, recoil at the sheer magnitude of the force before them. As the energy dissipates, the battlefield is left unrecognizable. The ground beneath them has been leveled into a perfect line, a testament to the sheer force of his attack. The surviving creatures, their bodies trembling, stare at him in horror. He meets their gaze, his piercing blue eyes unyielding, and commands them to leave and never return. Without hesitation, they turn and flee, vanishing into the depths of the forest. Exhaustion takes hold, his breaths ragged and unsteady. His body wavers, and before he can collapse, Altor moves swiftly to catch him. The others rush forward, their voices trembling with concern as they check his condition. Rumina places a hand on him, assessing his state. Standing close, Altor suggests that it is time to return, declaring that the hunt has come to an end. At night he sits on the grass, gazing at the sky in silent contemplation. Altor approaches, a small smile on his face, and inquires how he ended up there. A faint smile plays on his lips as he takes a deep breath, explaining that he simply wanted to look at the stars. It occurs to him how long it has been since he last slept so soundly. The memories of restless nights filled with nightmares and visions feel distant. Upon waking, he finds himself surrounded by his companions, their faces streaked with tears. Rumina, his voice shaking, admits that for a moment, he had believed Shirone would never wake again. It dawns on him that his slumber had been so deep it had resembled death itself. None of them had moved from his side until he stirred. Turning to Altor, he inquires about the others. A relieved smile crosses Altor's face as he explains that they are busy preparing a meal. He then adds that aside from Rumina's minor fall, no one was harmed, though all had been left in awe of Shirone's strength. Shirone nods, agreeing that it is indeed fortunate. Altor lifts his gaze toward the sky, remarking that by morning he will settle everything with the adults. He casually mentions that the monster's skins and fangs hold considerable value. Curious, he asks Shirone if he knows the creature's name. Without hesitation, Shirone identifies them as wolves and recalls hearing that their fangs are especially valuable. A laugh escapes Altor as he nods in agreement. A moment of silence lingers before Altor suddenly apologizes. Puzzled, Shirone questions what he means. Before he can respond, Altor hesitates, then admits that it is jealousy that weighs on him. Shirone is taken aback by the confession. His thoughts drift to a distant memory that a quiet afternoon when he had been reading after chopping firewood. He remembers Altor's friends passing by, one of them casually remarking that at times, Shirone looked undeniably impressive. Altor had simply observed him in silence back then. Snapping back to the present, Altor speaks once more, bringing up the dream Shirone has always pursued. Surprised, Shirone asks what he means. Altor nods knowingly, acknowledging that it is the very dream Shirone has been chasing. A faint blush dusts Altor's face as he expresses his hope that Shirone will one day achieve it. Hearing this, Shirone's lips curl into a smile. Both of them shift their gaze toward the endless sky, and with quiet certainty, he assures Altor that he will. The following day, Altor asked if the boy intended to extend his stay. Though he expressed a desire to remain, he explained that numerous unfinished studies at school required his attention. After a firm handshake, Altor wished him well and encouraged him to pursue his path as a magician. The others joined in, smiling warmly as they voiced their support for his journey. In response, Shirone smiled and assured them that he would return. At that moment, Rumina rushed toward him and embraced him tightly, insisting that he had to visit again after mastering magic. She jokingly warned that if he ever ignored her on purpose, he would have to face the consequences. Shirone chuckled gently and promised to remember. As he prepared to leave, he wished everyone well, and they responded with their goodbyes. Watching him depart, Altor placed a hand on Rumina's shoulder, and teasingly remarked that if she missed him so much, he could always bring him back for her. Rumina wiped her tears and shook her head, stating that he was not gone forever. Smiling, she added that she had always admired how determined he looked while chasing his dreams. Shirone made his way back to school, heading first to Istas. As he entered, he opened a small notebook and recalled a past conversation in which he had wondered how they could locate their research group's room among 89 blocks. Nade had smiled at the time, assuring him that as a new member he would be guided through the process. He had pointed ahead, instructing him to check the number on the ceiling, which was 19, and to note the color of the door. Shirone had taken notes and observed that room 19 with golden doors was number 5. As he climbed the stairs, he continued reading his notebook, analyzing the structure, and determining that 3 other rows were connected to the place. He had then represented them as X, Y, and Z, forming an equation to calculate the total key of Istas. He remembered being amazed by the logic and had wondered who could have come up with it. Nade had immediately responded that one of the founding members, a savant, had created the equation and had memorized the entire Estes system. He had also recalled showing the equation to Iruki for the first time. Returning to the present, Shirone opened a purple door and found himself inside the Paranormal Science Club's room. As he stepped in, he admired the elegance of the equation. From within, voices could be heard arguing over a calculation error. One person was complaining about wasted time, insisting that increasing the sample size would improve accuracy, while another retorted that such a method was only viable with unlimited funding. Slowly opening the door, Shirone reflected on how his journey to locate the club had mirrored his growing realization of the value of bonds and shared moments. Smiling, he greeted Nade and Iruki, remarking that they had finally returned after losing everything. Nade urged him to listen carefully to understand, while Iruki, noticing his pleased expression, questioned why he looked so happy. Shirone, silently expressing gratitude in his heart, smiled and announced that he was back. At the 48th training ground, the 3 of them gathered. Shirone extended his hand, and a stream of bright energy converged in his palm. Nade, observing the phenomenon, speculated that it was photon emission and questioned whether he had enhanced its output power. Iruki, however, sensed something unusual. Analyzing the energy, he realized that while photon emission typically radiated outward, Shirone's energy was instead condensing inward. Before Nade could fully grasp what was happening, Shirone unleashed his self-luminescent source, creating a force reminiscent of when he had fought against a group of Wolks. Stunned, Nade and Iruki examined the resulting hole, their expressions reflecting disbelief. Nade exclaimed in shock that Shirone had used light to punch through a solid surface, calling it magic. Iruki, still processing the situation, inquired about the spells involved. Smiling nervously, Nade dismissed it as a joke. Shirone then explained that he had developed the spell himself and had named it the Photon Cannon. Iruki, deep in thought, noted that anything related to photons was usually complex, making the spell particularly remarkable. Shirone offered to elaborate but suggested relocating to a different place. At a restaurant outside the school, Nade and Iruki, while eating noodles, expressed their disbelief at Shirone's ability to add mass to photons. They wondered whether the same principle could be applied to electricity. Nade admitted that the thought alone was overwhelming. He pointed out that if Shirone had truly achieved such a feat, it would mark a groundbreaking advancement in the world of magic. While Iruki acknowledged the brilliance of the discovery, he also noted that simply understanding the theory did not guarantee mastery over photonic magic. Even those who attained almighty enlightenment, he argued, would struggle to comprehend its intricacies. Nade agreed. adding that the implications were far greater than they had initially assumed. At that moment, Shirone asked for their help. He wished to deepen his knowledge, but due to the vacation, they could not access the library. Furthermore, he was unable to enter the Nam library alone and requested that they accompany him. Nade, curious about the restriction, speculated that it might be related to what Shirone had hesitated to say earlier. Iruki also pondered the reason behind it. Shirone hesitated, uncertain about how they would react if he revealed the truth. However, he ultimately decided that he would no longer run away. Taking a deep breath, he confessed that he was not a noble, but a commoner. He explained that as an infant, he had been abandoned in a stable before being adopted by his parents, with his father working as a simple hunter. A heavy silence filled the table. Nade, observing him closely, admitted that he had noticed the change in his mood recently. Iruki, however, reacted differently. Questioning why it even mattered, Nade was taken aback by Iruki's response. But Iruki continued, emphasizing that despite Shirone's background, he had accomplished extraordinary feats. He pointed out that Shirone had studied for only a year, reached the 5th grade in just 3 months, and even managed to defeat him in front of the entire school. He then questioned how someone from such circumstances had even managed to date a genius mage. Before he could say more, Nade quickly interrupted, reassuring Shirone that his origins were irrelevant. With a warm gesture, he expressed his affection for Shirone as a friend. Shirone, touched by their words, smiled and thanked them with teary eyes. Iruki, appearing deep in thought, suddenly asked whether Amy was already aware of this truth. Nade, equally surprised, inquired how long Shirone and Amy had known each other. Smiling, Shirone explained that they had been acquainted since childhood, though their relationship had not been particularly good at first. Intrigued, Nade urged him to share more details. 5 years earlier, in the slums of Radham, a boy had been desperately fleeing while clutching a stale loaf of meat. A tall man wielding knives had been chasing after him, cursing and shouting threats. The frail and sickly boy Canis had struggled to escape, eventually slipping into the sewers. Inside, Canis had whispered his sister's name, Erin. She had been lying on the ground, her head resting on a pile of straw, her face filled with pain. Rushing to her side, Canis had asked if she was in great distress. He had shown her the stolen bread, pleading with her not to die. As he had gazed toward the exit, hoping for help, the 3 men from earlier had appeared behind him, laughing wickedly. One of them had immediately punched Canis aside, mocking his futile attempt to hide. They had continued kicking him while taunting him for stealing such a precious piece of meat for his sister. One of them had then lifted Aaron onto his shoulder, while the others had mercilessly beaten Canis. He had screamed threats, vowing to kill them if they dared to harm her. However, they had only laughed, ridiculing him for making such bold claims. One of them had drawn a dagger, and another had given the order to finish him off. At that moment, Canis had despaired, thinking that if only he had power, things would be different. Just as all hope seems lost, dark energy had suddenly surrounded his attackers. In his wide-eyed shock, he had witnessed the gangsters being effortlessly dealt with. As the darkness coalesced, it had gently placed Aaron beside him before taking on a distinct form. A mysterious figure had then stood before them and, with a calm voice, had asked Canis whether he found magic fascinating. Stunned, Canis had remained silent until a sudden realization dawned upon him. In that moment, it had felt as though he had glimpsed the light of his life. As evening descended upon the capital of the Tormia Bashuka kingdom, Canis stood atop a well-lit building, surveying the security forces below. Speaking into a communication device, he reported their overwhelming presence. The voice on the other end acknowledged his observation, noting the unprecedented number of artifacts within the structure and emphasizing their immense archaeological significance. Shifting the conversation, Canis inquired about their target. His contact detailed that their objective was the dragon's hearts, the core of the magic restriction device, securely encased on the 3rd floor and heavily guarded by 15 personnel. However, before the relic could be seized, the core's presence would suppress his ability to access the spirit domain within the building. Canis straightened, muttering to himself that, with magic rendered useless, he had no choice but to enter directly. A cautionary reminder from the other side was met with nothing more than an amused smirk. With a question about the lingering shadow of his past, he leaped from the rooftop,